Remember words by reading essays. A rags to riches illusion.
Today, we are going to study an article titled A Rags to Riches Illusion. This story explores ambition, illusion, and integrity through the rise and fall of its main character. First, please listen carefully to the entire article from beginning to end to get a general understanding of the storyline and its main ideas.
Liam had always dreamed big. Growing up in a small fishing village, he believed he could tether his hopes to a single life-changing idea. One day, he announced he would develop his company from scratch, promising a rags to riches story that would inspire the nation. From the very beginning, he began touting his startup's revolutionary, eco-friendly boats. He even billed himself as a savior of the maritime industry. His flashy presentations were always accompanied to the strains of uplifting orchestral music, and before each speech, he would crank up the volume to stir excitement. Investors flocked in, dazzled by his nifty prototypes. Small, sleek, and enwrapped in bright blue covers. But there was a problem. The boats were duds. They leaked, the motors stalled, and the so-called green technology was just a marketing trick. When a rival company discovered this, they began to besmirch Liam's reputation in the press. Liam suspected his former partner had sown discord among the team, leading to internal feuds. Eventually, one by one, his friends and colleagues disengaged from him. Trying to recover, Liam attempted to divest himself of bad business habits. But by then it was too late. The grand public unveiling of his final product turned out to be a damp squib. The boat wouldn't even start. The media swarmed him for answers, but Liam decided to keep mum. Behind the scenes, lawsuits piled up. He had to exercise restraint when reporters taunted him, knowing that losing his temper would only worsen his situation. Months later, with creditors on his tail, Liam found himself humbled. He realized he had prostrated himself before money and fame, losing sight of integrity. Living quietly again in his village, he kept a small repair shop, always maintaining a laser-like focus on doing honest work. And though the memory of his failure would always keep him on his toes, he took solace in one thing. This time, there would be no illusion, only truth.
Now, let's listen to the article once again. This time, as we listen, I will pause occasionally to explain some key vocabulary, phrases, and expressions used in the text. Please pay attention not only to the meaning of the words, but also to how they are used in context.
Liam had always dreamed big. Growing up in a small fishing village, he believed he could tether his hopes to a single life-changing idea.
Let's look at the phrase, tether his hopes to, in the sentence. He believed he could tether his hopes to a single life-changing idea. The verb tether originally means to tie an animal to a post or a rope so it cannot wander freely. When we use it figuratively, it means to firmly connect one thing to another. So here, tether his hopes to means that Liam attached all his dreams, expectations, and future success to one single idea. If that idea failed, his hopes would collapse as well. The phrase suggests risk, limitation, and dependence, not just hope.
Teacher. Is tether always negative when used like this?
Good question. Not always. It can be neutral or even positive, meaning commitment. But in this context, it feels risky because all his hopes depend on one idea, leaving him no backup.
Can we replace it with connect or link?
You can, but those words are weaker. Tether strongly implies being bound or restricted, which fits the story's theme of illusion and eventual failure.
One day, he announced he would develop his company from scratch.
Now, let's look at the phrase, develop his company from scratch. The expression from scratch means starting from nothing. with no existing foundation, resources, or advantages. In this context, it tells us that Liam did not inherit a business, buy an established company, or receive strong support. Instead, he planned to build his company entirely by himself, beginning only with an idea. This phrase emphasizes ambition, difficulty, and the effort required to create something new.
Teacher. Does from scratch always mean having no money at all?
Not necessarily. It mainly means no ready-made structure or system. A person may have some money, but the business itself does not exist yet.
Can we use from scratch in daily life?
Yes, very often. For example, she learned English from scratch, or he built the website from scratch.
Promising a rags to riches story that would inspire the nation.
Next, let's explain the phrase rags to riches. Originally, rags refers to old, torn clothes worn by very poor people, while riches means great wealth. So, rags to riches describes a story in which someone rises from extreme poverty to great success or wealth. In the text, Liam promises a rags to riches story, suggesting a dramatic transformation that will inspire others. However, the title A Rags to Riches allusion hints that this promise may not be real.
Teacher. Is rags to riches usually positive?
Yes, it is usually very positive and inspiring, but writers can use it ironically, as in this text, to show that the dream is exaggerated or false.
Can we use it as an adjective?
Yes. For example, it's a classic rags to riches story. Or, she dreamed of a rags to riches future.
From the very beginning, he began touting his startup's revolutionary, eco-friendly boats.
Now, let's look at the word touting in the sentence. He began touting his startup's revolutionary, eco-friendly boats. The verb tout means to promote something loudly, proudly, and repeatedly, often in order to attract attention or convince others. It is commonly used in business, advertising, and the media. In this text, touting suggests that Liam was exaggerating the value of his product, emphasizing hype rather than truth. The word often carries a slightly negative tone, implying overpromotion.
Teacher. Is tout the same as advertise?
They are similar, but tout is stronger. It suggests more boasting or exaggeration, while advertise is more neutral.
Can tout ever be positive?
Yes, it can be neutral in some contexts, but in stories like this one, it usually hints at empty promises or excessive hype.
He even billed himself as a savior of the maritime industry.
Now, let's focus on the phrase billed himself as in the sentence. He even billed himself as the savior of the maritime industry. The verb bill here means to advertise or describe someone in a particular way, especially in public promotion. When someone bills himself as something, it means he gives himself a title or image, often to impress others. In this text, the phrase suggests that Liam self-promoted aggressively and possibly exaggerated his importance, which fits the theme of illusion.
Teacher. Is Bill himself as always dishonest?
Not always. It can be neutral in marketing, but when the claim is too grand, like savior of an industry, it often sounds boastful or unrealistic.
Can we use this phrase in passive form?
Yes. For example, he was billed as a genius inventor, meaning others promoted him that way.
His flashy presentations were always accompanied to the strains of uplifting orchestral music.
Now, let's look at the phrase to the strains of in the sentence. His flashy presentations were always accompanied to the strains of uplifting orchestral music. The expression to the strains of means with music playing in the background, especially music that creates a strong mood or atmosphere. It is often used in more formal or literary writing. In this text, the phrase emphasizes how carefully the mood was designed to influence emotions and create excitement, rather than focusing on real substance.
Teacher. Can we say to the strains of with any kind of sound?
It is mostly used with music, especially dramatic or emotional music, not ordinary noise.
Is this phrase common in daily conversation?
Not really. It sounds formal and literary, so it's more common in writing, speeches, or news reports.
And before each speech, he would crank up the volume to stir excitement.
Now, let's examine the phrase crank up in the sentence before each speech. He would crank up the volume to stir excitement. The phrasal verb crank up means to increase something, such as volume, speed, energy, or intensity. It is informal and often used in spoken English. In this context, it literally means turning the volume higher. But it also suggests that Liam was deliberately amplifying excitement and hype to influence the audience's emotions.
Teacher. Can crank up be used for abstract things?
Yes. We can say crank up the pressure or crank up the tension, meaning to increase them.
Is crank up more American or British?
It's commonly used in both, but it sounds more conversational than formal, so it fits speech rather than academic writing.
Investors flocked in, dazzled by his nifty prototypes.
Next, let's look at the word nifty in the sentence. Investors flocked in, dazzled by his nifty prototypes. The adjective nifty means clever, stylish, or appealing in a simple and effective way. It is informal and often shows admiration for something that is smart, practical, or visually attractive. Here, the author uses nifty to describe Liam's prototypes, suggesting they looked impressive and well-designed, even if they didn't actually work properly.
Teacher. Is nifty always positive?
Yes. It generally has a positive meaning, showing approval or cleverness. But it is informal, so it might not be suitable in formal writing.
Can we use nifty for people too? Or just things?
Mostly for things or ideas, but sometimes for people in a playful way. Like, he's a nifty little guy, meaning smart or clever.
Small, sleek, and enwrapped in bright blue covers.
Now, let's examine the word enwrapped in the sentence small, sleek, and enwrapped in bright blue covers. The verb enwrap means to completely cover or surround something, often in a way that suggests care or attention. It is a more formal or literary word than simply cover. In this context, it describes the prototypes being fully covered in bright blue material, emphasizing how visually striking and carefully presented they were to impress investors.
Teacher. Is enwrapped common in everyday English?
Not really. It's mostly literary or descriptive, used in writing or storytelling rather than casual speech.
Can we use it figuratively? Like with emotions.
Yes. For example, she was enwrapped in happiness means she was completely immersed or absorbed in that feeling.
But there was a problem. The boats were duds.
Let's look at the word duds in the sentence, but there was a problem. The boats were duds. The noun duds means things that fail to work properly or are disappointing. Often used informally. Originally, it could also mean old or worthless clothing. But in modern usage, it usually refers to products, ideas, or attempts that turn out to be useless or ineffective. Here, it tells us that Liam's boats looked good but didn't function, highlighting the failure behind the flashy presentation.
Teacher. Is duds only for objects?
Mostly. Yes. For things or events. You might say the fireworks were duds, or his plan was a dud.
Can it be used for people?
Rarely. If used for people, it's informal and a bit insulting. Like saying someone is ineffective or disappointing in a particular role.
They leaked, the motors stalled, and the so-called green technology was just a marketing trick. When a rival company discovered this, they began to besmirch Liam's reputation in the press.
Now, let's examine the word besmirch in the sentence. They began to besmirch Liam's reputation in the press. The verb besmirch means to damage someone's reputation or make them seem bad or untrustworthy, often through false or unfair accusations. It is a formal and somewhat literary word. In this context, it shows that Liam's rivals were attacking his credibility and spreading negative information to harm how others saw him.
Teacher. Is besmirch only used in serious situations?
Yes. Usually. It's more formal and dramatic than words like smear or criticize. It implies harm to someone's honor or reputation.
Can we use it in everyday conversation?
It's uncommon in casual speech. You'd hear it more in news reports, essays, or literature, like the scandal besmirched the politician's career.
Liam suspected his former partner had sown discord among the team, leading to internal feuds.
Next, let's look at the phrase sown discord in the sentence. Liam suspected his former partner had sown discord among the team. The verb sow literally means to plant seeds, but figuratively, it means to cause or spread something, usually negative, like trouble, conflict, or disagreement. So, sown discord means that someone deliberately created conflict or tension within the team. It's a formal or literary expression often used in writing to describe subtle or deliberate actions that cause problems.
Teacher. Can so be used with positive things too?
Yes, you can say sow goodwill or sow kindness, which means to spread something positive. Context tells you whether it's good or bad.
Is sown discord common in speech?
Not very. It's more formal or literary, often used in news articles, essays, or stories to describe deliberate troublemaking.
Eventually, one by one, his friends and colleagues disengaged from him.
Now, let's focus on the word disengaged in the sentence eventually. One by one, his friends and colleagues disengaged from him. The verb disengage means to withdraw, step back, or stop being involved, either physically or emotionally. In this context, it does not mean a sudden break, but a gradual pulling away. The word suggests that people slowly lost interest, trust, or connection with Liam as problems increased.
Teacher. Is disengage always about relationships?
Not always. It can also mean to separate machines, stop a process, or leave a situation, like disengage the gear.
Is disengaged stronger than left?
Yes. Disengaged sounds more formal and implies emotional or mental distance, not just physical leaving.
Trying to recover, Liam attempted to divest himself of bad business habits. But by then it was too late.
Now let's examine the phrase divest himself of in the sentence Liam attempted to divest himself of bad business habits. The verb divest means to remove, get rid of, or free oneself from something, especially something unwanted or harmful. It is a formal word often used in business or legal contexts. In this sentence, divest himself of suggests that Liam was trying to consciously and deliberately abandon his bad habits, not just stop them casually.
Teacher. Is divest only used in business situations?
Mostly. Yes. It often refers to selling assets. But it can also be used figuratively, as in giving up habits or beliefs.
Why doesn't the writer just say, get rid of?
Because divest himself of sounds more formal and serious, showing that the change required effort and intention, not something easy.
The grand public unveiling of his final product turned out to be a damp squib. The boat wouldn't even start.
Now, let's explain the expression a damp squib in the sentence the grand public unveiling of his final product turned out to be a damp squib. Originally, a squib was a small firework. If it became damp, it would fail to explode. So, a damp squib means something that was expected to be exciting or impressive, but turned out to be disappointing or unsuccessful. In this text, it highlights the contrast between the huge expectations and the embarrassing failure of the product launch.
Teacher. Is this expression British or American?
It is mainly British English, though it's understood in American English too.
Can we use it in modern situations?
Yes. For example, the movie was advertised heavily, but it was a damp squib, meaning it failed to impress.
The media swarmed him for answers, but Liam decided to keep mum.
Now let's look at the phrase keep mum in the sentence Liam decided to keep mum. The idiom keep mum means to remain silent or say nothing about something, especially when people expect an explanation. It is informal and often used when someone chooses silence to avoid trouble or attention. In this story, it shows that Liam avoided responding to the media, possibly out of fear,
shame,
or strategy.
Teacher. Is mum related to the word mother?
Good question.
But no.
Here, mum comes from a sound meaning silent, not from mother.
Is this phrase polite or rude?
It's informal but not rude. However, in serious situations, keeping mum can sometimes make people seem uncooperative.
Behind the scenes, lawsuits piled up. He had to exercise restraint when reporters taunted him.
Now, let's focus on the phrase exercise restraint in the sentence. He had to exercise restraint when reporters taunted him. The verb exercise here means to use or practice, and restraint means self-control. So, exercise restraint means to consciously control your emotions or actions, especially in a difficult or provocative situation. In this text, it shows that Liam resisted anger or impulsive reactions, knowing that losing control would make things worse.
Teacher. Is this phrase formal?
Yes. It's quite formal and commonly used in writing, news reports, and speeches.
Can it be used for things other than emotions?
Absolutely. You can exercise restraint in spending money, using power, or making decisions, any situation that requires self-discipline.
Knowing that losing his temper would only worsen his situation. Months later, with creditors on his tail, Liam found himself humbled. He realized he had prostrated himself before money and fame, losing sight of integrity.
Now, let's examine the word prostrated in the sentence. He realized he had prostrated himself before money and fame. The verb prostrate literally means to lie face down on the ground, often as a sign of worship, submission, or defeat. Figuratively, prostrated himself before means to humbly submit to or worship something, giving it too much power. In this text, it suggests that Liam placed money and fame above his values, almost treating them like idols.
Teacher. Is prostrated a religious word?
It often appears in religious or formal contexts, but writers also use it figuratively to show extreme submission.
Can we use it in daily conversation?
Not usually. It's quite formal and literary, so it's better suited to writing than casual speech.
Living quietly again in his village, he kept a small repair shop, always maintaining a laser-like focus on doing honest work.
Now, let's look at the phrase, maintaining a laser-like focus on, in the sentence, always maintaining a laser-like focus on doing honest work. A laser produces a very narrow, powerful beam of light. So, laser-like focus means extreme concentration and precision, with no distraction. The verb maintaining emphasizes that this focus is continuous, not temporary. In the text, the phrase shows Liam's transformation. He now concentrates carefully and consistently on honest work, unlike before, when he was distracted by fame and money.
Teacher. Is laser-like focus formal or informal?
It's semi-informal. It's common in modern writing and speeches, but less common in academic essays.
Can we use it for negative actions?
Yes. You could say he had a laser-like focus on winning at any cost, which suggests strong concentration, not necessarily good intentions.
And though the memory of his failure would always keep him on his toes.
Now,
Let's explain the phrase, keep him on his toes, in the sentence, the memory of his failure would always keep him on his toes. The expression, keep someone on their toes, means to keep someone alert, focused, and ready for action, often because there is an ongoing challenge or threat. It suggests that Liam's past failure will remind him to stay cautious and avoid making the same mistakes. It's about being constantly aware and prepared for what's coming next.
Teacher. Is this phrase only for negative situations?
no,
It's not just negative. It can also mean staying sharp or vigilant in any situation, whether it's a challenge or just needing to be ready for anything.
Can we use it in other contexts? Like at work?
Definitely. You might say, the boss's high expectations keep me on my toes, meaning you stay alert and focused because of the pressure to perform.
He took solace in one thing. This time, there would be no illusion, only truth.
Next, we will listen to the whole article one more time without interruption. After learning the important words and phrases, try to understand the text more deeply and notice how these expressions contribute to the overall message and tone of the story.
Liam had always dreamed big. Growing up in a small fishing village, he believed he could tether his hopes to a single life-changing idea. One day, he announced he would develop his company from scratch, promising a rags-to-riches story that would inspire the nation. From the very beginning, he began touting his startup's revolutionary, eco-friendly boats. He even billed himself as a savior of the maritime industry. His flashy presentations were always accompanied to the strains of uplifting orchestral music, and before each speech, he would crank up the volume to stir excitement. Investors flocked in, dazzled by his nifty prototypes. Small, sleek, and enwrapped in bright blue covers. But there was a problem. The boats were duds. They leaked, the motors stalled, and the so-called green technology was just a marketing trick. When a rival company discovered this, they began to besmirch Liam's reputation in the press. Liam suspected his former partner had sown discord among the team, leading to internal feuds. Eventually, one by one, his friends and colleagues disengaged from him. Trying to recover, Liam attempted to divest himself of bad business habits. But by then it was too late. The grand public unveiling of his final product turned out to be a damp squib. The boat wouldn't even start. The media swarmed him for answers, but Liam decided to keep mum. Behind the scenes, lawsuits piled up. He had to exercise restraint when reporters taunted him, knowing that losing his temper would only worsen his situation. Months later, with creditors on his tail, Liam found himself humbled. He realized he had prostrated himself before money and fame, losing sight of integrity. Living quietly again in his village, he kept a small repair shop, always maintaining a laser-like focus on doing honest work. And though the memory of his failure would always keep him on his toes, he took solace in one thing. This time, there would be no illusion, only truth.
That brings us to the end of today's lesson. Thank you for your careful listening and active participation. I hope this article has helped you better understand both the language and the ideas behind the story. Class is now over.